Another day, another real world test. Today we're doing it on the OnePlus 13, and as per the usual, we will explore all while we test out this phone. But eagle-eyed viewers might notice, I'm not in New York City. I'm actually in the middle of the ocean, off the coast of the Bahamas, on one of the largest ships on the planet. And I'm here because OnePlus actually brought a bunch of us out onto this ship to show us the new phone, and then set us loose on the ship to test it out. So, let's do just that and see how it does. But first things first.
Coffee. Check. Now, we were supposed to have docked in Nassau today, so we would have been exploring there, but due to some high winds and the sheer vastness of this ship, we can't dock in that port safely, apparently. So, let's explore this massive vessel instead. Right now, we are on deck 5 of 18 of the Allure of the Seas, the 6th largest cruise ship in the world. And actually, back in 2010, when she was formally delivered to Royal Caribbean, she was the world's largest cruise ship. And it kept that title for about 5 years, until it kept getting pushed further and further down the list by its slightly larger sister ships in the Oasis class of ship. And with the new Icon class of ship, led by the Icon of the Seas that launched this year, that now holds the title for the largest passenger ship. Now, these classes of ships are actually named for the first vessel in the class. So in this case, the Oasis class first vessel was the Oasis of the Seas. And all of the ones in that class share 95% of their DNA with each other. The newer the ship in the class, though, they tend to add more restaurants, water slides, and a few other extras. Now, all of them, though, have basically 7 distinct neighborhoods, they call them. Here on Deck 5 is the Royal Promenade, and it's where a lot of guest services places are, but most of the shopping on the ship, and 9 restaurants and bars. If we head up 3 decks, we end up in Central Park, an open air space with some of the few plants on board, and has most of the higher-end restaurants on the ship. While we're here, though, let's talk about the design of the OnePlus 13. So, firstly, the display is basically flat. It does have a slight curve to all the edges, but it no longer affects using the device. OnePlus says it's there to somehow help with the durability of the display. I just think it's a nice design touch, personally. Now, that screen is a 2K 6.8 2-inch display that can go up to 4,500 nits of brightness and has an adaptive refresh rate that can do 120 Hz or frames per second for smoother animations and gaming, and then drop it all the way down to 1 Hz per second or 1 frame per second when something static like an image is on the display to save power. Personally, I think the display looks great. It does get super bright, and even out here in the bright sunlight on the ship's deck. And actually, it's just a really nice display in general. Now, flipping the phone around, things will look pretty familiar on the back. We have the usual circle of cameras that we're used to now on OnePlus phones, as well as the Hasselblad H. And it comes in 3 colors: white, black, and obviously the hero color that I have here, and the only one in vegan leather, the blue, which they call Midnight Ocean. And no, I don't think that name and where we are for this event are a coincidence. Now, we also have an interesting choice for building an ecosystem of accessories that is kind of clever. So, instead of putting magnets in the back of the phone, they have put them in a few specific cases for the phone. So, the OnePlus Mag cases, they're called, allow you to put them on the phone and then be able to use any Qi 2 accessories that have magnets, as well as the iPhone MagSafe accessories, as those both have magnets in the same standard spot. Part of me wishes that it was in the phone instead, and since it fits in this thin case, the argument of there not being enough room in the phone doesn't make sense. But if there is some type of licensing fee that is required to be paid by a manufacturer to use Qi 2 in a phone, maybe that does. And if so, then this way OnePlus only has to pay when someone wants the case and wants that feature, instead of raising the price of the phone itself, which I guess if that were true, would make sense. Next, we have the pool and sports neighborhood. It is mostly on deck 15. It has a main pool with 2 hot tubs next to it, a beach pool they call it because it's sloped like a beach so you can wade into it, and there are 2 more hot tubs on either side of that. There's also an adults only section called the solarium that has its own pool and 2 more hot tubs, and then moving aft to the rear of the ship, there is the other part of this called the sports deck, which has 2 Flow Rider surf simulators, a 9-hole mini golf course, and a court for basketball, volleyball, and soccer. There's also an 82-foot, 25-meter zip line here as well, which has been rained out most of the time we've been here, but oh well. Nearby here, though, there's a kids section, including their own nightclub of sorts, an outdoor deck for kids only, and areas specific to each different age range of kid and where they can hang out. Okay, while we're up here, let's talk about the cameras. Firstly, we have the 50 megapixel main Sony LYT 808 1 by 1.4 inch f1.6 aperture sensor that they also sensor crop to get a decent 2 times like a lot of companies are doing now. And then we have a 50 megapixel ultra wide 1 by 2.75 inch sensor, and we have a 3 times Sony LYT 600 1 by 1.95 inch f2.6 aperture telephoto sensor. And they also sensor crop that for their 6 times, which, so long as lighting is good, does a pretty good job as well, just like the 2 times. We were also told that their AI has improved for their 30 times photos as well, and you can see what you think here as per the usual, along with all the other photos and video samples throughout this video. We also have what they call dual exposure clear burst, which allows them to take both a short and a long exposure for HDR in each of their burst photos, supposedly resulting in better exposed images. Now I'll let you guys be the judge with that compared to the iPhone 16 here. Now something nice to see is the ability to shoot 4K 60 in all of the cameras. You can do this in Dolby Vision HDR as well. I didn't, because you can't mix HDR and non-HDR footage in the same video, and I wasn't going to shoot this entire thing in HDR. But even without HDR, 4K 60 is useful to be able to slow down to half speed when you want to in post. Now another albeit slightly loose tying to the ship for this event is the fact that this is one of the first devices with IP68 rating, which we all know that lets you submerge the phone in up to 1.5 meters of water for 30 minutes, but it also has IP69 rating, which is a little more interesting. While the IP68 rating covers submerging, the 69 actually says that you can blast water at the phone from varying angles up to 1,450 PSI and up to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, 80 degrees Celsius. So that means you can technically put it in the dishwasher or your laundry machine, so long as they don't get hotter than those temperatures. So OnePlus actually brought a tiny portable version of both of those machines on the ship, and of course we gladly threw the phones into them to see what would happen. And as advertised, at least in these admittedly not very powerful versions of those machines for obvious portability reasons, the phones worked fine when we took them out. They're actually so confident about this though, to the point where they actually said to us, if you ever want to wash your phone, just throw it in the dishwasher. Okay, under the kids section area, we have the Vitality Spa, where you can get massages and the like, as well as a fitness center to work out in. Moving aft again, we have the Boardwalk, which is inspired by Coney Island in Brooklyn. We have a wooden carousel, 2 rock climbing walls, the Aqua Theater, where you can watch a water-themed acrobatics show, which I actually enjoyed, as well as a hot dog stand, Johnny Rockets, and a few other restaurants and bars. And finally, down on deck 4, we have the entertainment place with an ice skating rink, theater, live comedy space, a casino, and even a nightclub. Okay, powering this phone is the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset, which was just announced a couple of months ago and is the first mobile chipset to use the new Orion Core's Qualcomm launch with the Snapdragon X Elite laptop chipsets. So that's interesting at least to see in here so soon. And with that, we have a 6,000 milliamp battery, which is massive, frankly. Apparently, they managed to use a silicon carbon battery that uses a new process involving silicon being used in the anode part of the battery, and that has helped increase the density capacity without increasing the physical size of the battery. It's also a dual battery design like we're used to from the SuperVOOC capable manufacturers from BBK, the parent company that owns all of them, including OnePlus. That dual design helps to increase charging speeds as they can fill both sides at once, massively increasing the speed in watts at which they can charge. It also comes with a 100-watt SuperVOOC charger in the box that will do 80 watts here in the United States just because of how our electrical infrastructure runs on 110 volts instead of 220 volts in Europe and elsewhere. But that will still get full in about 36 minutes. We also have a 50-watt wireless magnetic charger to use with that aforementioned case. It also works with iPhones and even as a fan to help with cooling if you wanted to use it while gaming, which is loud, but I guess clever. And speaking of battery and charging, here's my battery usage for for today, but keep in mind that today was not a normal day. It was a real world test day, and so I used my cameras way more than you ever would. So here's another more normal day, so you have something at least to compare it to. And honestly, the battery life is insane. And I'm sure that comes down to the new chipset combined with the sheer size of that 6,000 milliamp battery. Besides that, the device is running Oxygen OS 15, which OnePlus says is them trying to return some of the personality of old OnePlus back into the software. And while I still don't think it's the same as the old OS was, it's at least a step in the right direction. The OnePlus 13 starts at $899, and I'll leave a link below to the best price that I could find on it, as usual. But there you go. Let me know what you guys think of this phone, of this video, in the comments below. Always appreciate hearing from you guys. And right now, I think I'm gonna go find my friends at a bar and have one last drink on our last night of this cruise. Good night.